excited about tonight's podcast. We have a great guest. This has been a long time in the making. Um, if some of you all remember when we first started doing our podcast, we would always talk about a very special hot sauce, and it's this one here,
The Swatch
the
Sauce.
Squatch Sauce, the Appalachian Sauce Company. And so tonight we actually have the maker of the Appalachian Sauce Company Squatch Sauce, and he is also the host of Conn's Country podcast. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about both.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. So without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Lawrence Conn.
Hey
Hello.
guys.
One of these days, I'm going to get that fake audience in there to do
Like
Yeah,
what?
So, how's everything going?
it's been going good.
Yeah.
Going good.
Yeah, I was trying to think. We hooked up and promoted you for what, a couple years now, I think.
Yeah,
hmm
And
something like
yeah,
it.
and we interviewed you one day at the Round County Kentucky Pr- Proud. Um, I can't think of the
Down there at the
yeah
conference center.
Yeah.
the Kentucky Expo kind of thing with Kentucky Proud. Yeah.
Yeah, the Kentucky Proud Expo.
Yes.
So, we I advertised that we would be talking about faith and family and what God's doing in your life. So, tell us about your come to Jesus moment. Like, I know you're a believer, but tell us that moment when you realized, it's like, I got to give my life to God.
Yeah, I was always raised in church and I always thought I was a Christian. I don't believe there was ever a time that I wasn't a Christian, but I remember, in Sunday school, I was probably 5 years old. I remember them talking about, giving your life to God and, saying the prayer,
Yeah.
accepting Jesus into my heart. I thought that I already had, but I hadn't said, those specific words. So I thought I had
Yeah.
to say them. So I did. And I'd say that's when I officially became a Christian, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've always believed in Jesus and, known that he was real. And, uh, I wish I had a better story than that, but
Hey, that's cool because that kind of shows that God has always had His hand on you, and like so it's like that's a good testimony.
Yeah, it
yeah.
is. And Mickey showed me I guess it's on your Facebook page or maybe on your podcast page. It was kind of a like a where you're at now kind of proclamation, and you were talking about, where God has you right now, and you know that there's more that's out there. And
hmm
it's like now we are living in a time where Mickey and I always say that we've come too far to go back or to quit or to give
Yeah.
up. And
Right.
to hear that, you're thankful for where you're at on your journey. And if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I did a little video just kind of explaining, the way that I was feeling. I don't know. I'm at a point right now. I'm not afraid to admit it, where I just feel like I'm not getting, where I want to go, but I know I'm going to get there eventually. And
Right.
I don't know how long
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take, but I know that I believe that I'm on the right path, and, something will break for me sooner or later, but it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough,
Yeah.
when you feel like you're sludging through molasses or something. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because we've been doing this for, like, officially for like what,
3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years. And
mhm,
so it has been a slow process, but we've been committed and faithful to it. And one of the things that I've taken away from podcasting is you make lifelong connections.
Yeah.
mhm,
And you get to meet people across the U.S. and you build a friendship, and those friendships are hard to come by. And
Yeah.
so we really enjoy the people that we meet on here, and we interview, and we talk to them on a fairly regular basis, and we get to see what they're doing and rejoice in their victories. And
Hmm.
so we've seen your growth, and we've seen it's like you're sticking in there, you're hanging on, and God's got great things for you.
Yeah, I believe he does. I'm starting to see it. It's
Yeah.
tough sometimes when you have a dream, you have something pictured, and you're not there yet. But
Yeah.
Right.
I know whatever God's got planned, it's gonna be good.
I think it's like, and I think you will probably relate to this too, but I think the people that have big dreams, I always think back to the Joseph story, because God kind of showed Joseph the end picture, like what the end result was going to be. Then he had to walk it out. It's
Hmm.
like after he told him what was going to happen, then he had to go through all the bad stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what's hard, is like when you have a feeling what God is wanting to do is walking through those tough, hard steps to
the,
get there.
Hmm.
the dry times, the hard times. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that we have learned too, it's like every time that we have really questioned whether we was making a difference or not, or and I'll be honest, even when I felt like it's like we're wasting our time here, let's quit. It's
Hmm.
like nobody's gonna care. It would be that exact time that somebody would write and say, this episode here changed my life. It's like, thank you for talking about this topic because I thought I was the only one. And I'll be honest, it's like to know that I got to that point where the enemy wanted me to quit and I was very close to doing it. I I broke down and cried because it's like
Hmm.
right when you want to quit, you know, God makes a way for somebody to tell you that He used you to be their lifeline, and that's I know it's cliche for people to say as long as I reach one person, then it's worth it all.
Hmm.
But it's like when you and and if you haven't already, you'll get to this point too. But that there will be times that you'll want to quit, but people will encourage you to go on, and that's when you know that it's worth the fight. It's worth the trudging through the molasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not easy. That's for sure. Yeah. I'd like to get there now, but
Yeah.
uh, all this hard work is gonna go to something eventually, if it's not already.
Right.
And too, it's like always remember too that God always works with people before they're in great leadership. He always works with them out in the field. Like with David, he was out in the field preparing, protecting the sheep from the bears and the wolves and all that.
Hmm.
And but he was actually being prepared to take on Goliath.
Right.
That propelled him to where he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like we're we're really thankful that you have that call of God on your life, and let's talk about your Squatch sauce, because I think it's really cool. Not only is it a great sauce, shout it out those of you in the back. But you've teamed up with the Feeding Appalachia. Is it Feeding Appalachia?
Feeding Kentucky.
Feeding Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So every bottle sold, we donate a dollar to them, and that feeds 8 people. Uh,
Awesome.
it provides 8 meals at least.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
but that's always something that I wanted to do when I started a business, was to start giving back immediately. I could wait till I build a successful company and then make big donations to stuff like that. But I wanted something that, it don't matter how many bottles I sell. If I sell one, I've made somewhat of a difference.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, what was it that you were like, hot sauce is going to be the brand that I want to push? It could have been different things, but why the hot sauce?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in business, for as long as I can remember. Really, that's something that I've always wanted to do, is have my own business. And I was working with Pastor Keith Willoughby. He had a bilingual
Mhm.
church,
Mhm.
and he helped build furniture for Mexican restaurants, and I helped him do that for a while. So I was always in the Mexican restaurants, and I I started really getting a taste for spicy food, and I love the hot sauce. I actually I've always loved hot sauce because that's how Mom used to discipline me. She used to instead of spanking me, she'd give me a little bit of hot sauce on my tongue, and uh,
I guess that
yeah,
works. I didn't know that, but that
it
works.
got well. It didn't work for me because I loved it.
It made you an addict.
Yeah, it turned me into a hot sauce addict. So, and I've always liked cooking, so I figured if I'm going to start a business, it might as well be something that I could probably do well, was make a hot sauce. So I
Mhm.
decided to do that. And I don't know where I came up with the name at. I know it came to me one day from something. I was thinking first name I was going to call it was just Squatch Daddy, but I eventually made a flavor Squatch Daddy. But I just decided to just call it Squatch Sauce.
Squatch sauce. Yeah.
Yeah, we know brother Keith Willoughby, and he's
Hmm.
always had a heart and a passion for, you know, working with and ministering to our Hispanic population, and so
Hmm.
that's cool that you hooked
Keith
up.
and Ramona.
Uh huh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome people.
Yeah, they are.
So, like, going from the hot sauce, like, what inspired you to start your Conn's Country podcast?
Well, aside from uh, business and cooking and that sort of thing, I've always had a passion for music. My papaw, he started the Kentucky Center for Traditional Music, and he was in and out of different bluegrass bands, pretty much all his life. And
Mhm.
he hosted WMKY Bluegrass Diversion for 20 years, and so bluegrass was a big part of my life. And my mama, she's a musician, and she's got her music venue here in Salt Lick.
Mhm.
And my mom's always sang in church and stuff. So I've music's always been a really big part of my life, and what all my family listens to is bluegrass and older country, and that's just what I've been passionate about, especially bluegrass. And um, I've wanted to, do something in that field, whether it's starting a festival. I started a Salt Lake Music Festival, the Salt Lake Food and Music Festival, and I wanted to bring something every day, not just one day a year, or
Yeah,
So I figured a podcast would be the way to go.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, we were talking in our pre interview. I was thinking about this earlier. I was vocalizing my disdain for most of country music today, and I was thinking it's kind of wild because my favorite genre of country music would be like '90s country music,
Hmm.
back and earlier, back to me when it sounded real, and I think it's wild how like even in today's market, it's out of all the mainstream out there, out of the stuff that I can't stand to listen to, I'm thankful for artists like Chris Stapleton, and there's like,
Yeah.
and like he's from around, around this area,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and I think it's cool, and there's others too that I can't remember the name off the top, like Tyler Childers and
Hmm. Sturgill Simpson is another
yeah,
one from Kentucky that's
yeah,
gotten
Yeah.
pretty big.
and it to me it's wild. It's like how like even though the commercial stuff, if you
Hmm.
could call it that, is kind of like going off the deep end. I think it's cool that it's people with Appalachian roots.
Yeah,
That's kind of like,
I think Tyler Childers and Chris Stapleton are some of the people that started it.
yeah,
These
Mhm.
Kentucky boys started this kind of transition away from the commercialized bull crap that's happening in Nashville.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. and it makes me excited because like sometimes I would get so discouraged because it it about makes me mad because like when you listen to some of the lyrics, and I'm not saying that the people out there is not talented because there's a lot of talent out there,
Oh yeah.
but when you
Hmm.
hear the lyrics, to me it's almost insulting that they would put that on the radio thinking that I would think that that was like like artistic. you know
I've got a theory. I know it's the songwriters that are doing it.
yeah,
And but I think they've got people ahead of them that's saying, here's what most people are this group of people, they're listening to country music, and they're the ones buying the tickets. And I think we need to market towards those specific people. So they're telling these songwriters to write
Yeah.
music for these teenage and young 20s girls that are the ones buying the tickets because they think they got a chance at whoever's on stage.
yeah,
That's what we call the agenda.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's an agenda out there. Absolutely.
And it's like we were talking earlier, like when Oliver Anthony broke out. It's I remember when his song, went big time,
Hmm.
and I think it was what was his name, Rich. I forget his last name, but
Not sure.
he reached out to him, and he was talking about how like songwriters today can't voice their opinion today because of the political correctness,
Hmm.
and it's like you go back like even to like the old time Hank Williams Jr. It's like, I mean, that stuff was like raw country.
Yeah. Yeah, there was
Hmm.
a point, I think probably in the 80s, early 80s, they started transitioning into two or three songwriters going in together and in these big Nashville offices writing songs, and they're
Yeah,
saying we need to push this song, this song, and this song.
John Rich, that's who it was. Brother George got it. Brother George is in the audience tonight.
I did want to, for our audience that may not know, Lawrence, his grandfather, was Sandy Nip, and as he mentioned, he was a radio announcer for bluegrass music and stuff. And I feel like with your grandfather and stuff, where he was in radio, and radio's kind of phased out, and we're going back into podcasting, which is similar to radio but not quite.
Hmm.
And do you feel like that you are carrying on his legacy?
That's one of my goals. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I whether it be through anything that I do with the music or the podcast or whatever it may be, I always try to carry on what he wanted carried on, which is
Yeah.
traditional bluegrass music. So I try to bring that up as much as possible, but I kind of
Mm-hmm.
twist in my own side of things. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
like the older country and stuff. So
Yeah. What do you think he would have thought about podcasting as we know it now?
he'd probably have his own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is kind of like radio with the face.
Yeah.
Well, it's like radio, but then you can go back to any point in the segment or in the program and listen to it. And it's like, when we were younger and you listened to radio, we would have our mixed tapes, and we'd push record and be able to record what was on the radio, and you'd sit there and wait for the song to replay in an hour. And it's like now we have so much access to music and podcasts. It's amazing, really, the archive of information that is presented to us now.
Oh yeah. There's a podcast that's right up everybody's alley.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
Don't matter what you're into.
and I think it's cool too because one of the cool things that I see in bluegrass is like there's kind of like a cultural change. It's like because what I grew up thinking of like bluegrass players, if they wasn't in a suit, then they were in like bibbed overalls, and it's
Hmm.
kind of cool now because like now you see like bluegrass players and they look gangsta. They have
Yeah.
like they have the tattoos and the earrings, and it's like it's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of hippies in bluegrass now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's wild just to think how when cultures collide like it, it's kind of cool. And I think like that's what one of the things like God might be doing with you is because like in your podcast, it's like you're taking it further than what it would have went, in its original state.
Yeah.
So, what is, for those that may have not listened yet, what is the flow of your podcast?
We usually have a about a 30 to 45 minute interview. We just talk about music and their inspirations, any stories they might have of being on the road, and then after we get done talking, we have a short session of one or two songs, and that's just a way to let everybody a variety of content, not just the podcast, but also a musical performance at the end. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
it's been fun for sure.
yeah.
Hmm.
So what's been one of your most memorable stories that you've heard so far from your musicians?
Hmm. Oh, I got a good one. I don't know what. Uh, I I don't know if I should say it because it,
what
it
what
it
what
was
is
on
it?
a.
What is it
It's
they
got to
do?
do. It's got to do with Keith Whitley
Okay.
and his alleged death.
Mm.
Okay. Well, we get
Well, I mean, his
into,
death happened, but how it
yeah,
happened is
yeah,
a kind of a mystery to at least
Yeah.
his guitar
right.
player.
Yeah, you can share with us.
Well, I don't know. I don't think his guitar player thinks he died of it was an accidental death. I think he thinks that it was a purposeful
Yeah.
murder.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Ooh. See, like you could stretch that episode into
Yeah.
like music and crime suspicion.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I get into true crime podcasts. Yeah, that would be a total different spin from what we've been presented in the media.
Yeah,
Be
I
like
know.
be like a Salt Lake version of Investigation Discovery.
Yeah.
Talking about Keith Whitley though, one of the times that we went over to the Sandy Hook, what's that little museum called over there?
It was at Laurel Gorge. It
Yeah,
was the art center, maybe.
and I saw they had like a pair of his boots like on display, and I was like,
Hmm.
my goodness, that looks like kid size boots.
Yeah, he had like little feet. And then I told Mickey I said I'd never been to the Memorial Gardens, where his bronze statue is. And I remember we went and it was raining that day. And I got out and I was wanting to look, and Mickey's like, "Get back in the car, it's raining." I'm like, "I want to see how tall he is." And it's like, really, he wasn't a large man.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. But yeah, when we saw his boots, it was like those look like kid boots.
I think they were what about a size?
It was like a 7 or
Yeah,
something in
Well,
men's, and
but
yeah,
yeah, you go back and look at some of the footage, like him and Ricky Skaggs.
hmm
Excuse me. Like they sung a lot together, and it's like they were awesome.
yeah.
Represent us well.
yeah, no, yeah. I don't know of any Kentucky musician that's made it to Nashville and did it on a professional level that wasn't really incredible. There's nobody
Yeah.
in between. You're either good or you're bad.
Yeah.
Right. Have you done any work with Don Rigsby?
I've talked to him. He was actually really good friends with my papaw.
Yeah.
But I've talked to him. We're planning on doing something.
That's
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I saw where he was going to be touring this year with Balsam Ridge, I believe.
Hmm.
And he seemed really excited about that. And
Yeah. He's
uh,
he's he's definitely made it in the bluegrass scene.
yeah.
I think, me personally, I think he is one of the most underrated vocalists.
Oh,
Like,
he's incredible.
yeah, the first time I ever heard him sing Beulah Land,
Mm-hmm.
It was actually on YouTube, and I put it on repeat and like listened to it all night. Like it
Mm-hmm.
tears me up.
Yeah, he's good.
One
He's real
day,
good.
when CC's was here in Moorhead, the pizza place, Mickey said, "Oh my gosh, it's Don Ringsby." He's
Now
like,
let's keep this under wraps. This
and he said, "Whatever you do, don't draw attention,"
I
because you know,
like Tammy she never gets embarrassed, and like here I am like, oh my goodness, it's the living legend Don Rigsby. And I told
That's
her,
funny.
I said don't you embarrass me in front of Don.
That's funny.
and I think the funny story that we have with Don is he was given he does I guess like you would call them like little workshops or something like one-on-one time,
Mm-hmm.
and he was doing one on songwriting, and Mick wanted to go, and he paid his money for his session, and they come out of the room, and Don tells me, he's like, just tell him to write, he's got it, just tell him to write.
Because I'm like, what about structure, and what about the chorus before the bridge? And he's like, he said, he told me, he said, let me tell you this, and he said, I'm going to leave it at this. He said, forget the rules and just write.
And then I was like, so what else did you talk about? And he's like, wrestling. And I was like, well, you can pay me to talk about wrestling.
Yeah, me, him, and his boy were talking about the WWE.
But yeah, he's just common folk like we are, and
Yeah,
he's a great talent for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
he is. That's funny. I grew up, seeing people like Don Rigsby and
Hmm.
Dave Evans and Ralph Stanley and these people that
Hmm.
I came in contact with when I was younger. I had no idea that I was standing next to some
Right.
legends, and
Yeah.
it's kind of unfazed me back then, but now I appreciate it.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
remember
sure.
once out to the House of Prayer, they had, of course, at this time I didn't even know who Ralph Stanley the first was, but
Hmm.
they had Ralph Stanley the second out there, and I remember thinking, who is this dude? And it's like, because they were like, it's Ralph Stanley the second. Of
Hmm.
course, then I didn't even know like who Ralph Stanley was, but like after I realized who it was, I'm like, that's who that was.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I don't want to spill too much, but I think him and Mom actually dated for a while.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
we'll have to do a new segment and be like the secrets
Yes.
of the bluegrass elites. But yeah, yeah, it's something else.
Mhm.
So, what do you have coming down the pipeline?
Tomorrow I'm actually going to Nashville.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, I've got a big interview with a musician named Alex Key. He's getting pretty big in country right now. He does more of like a '90s style country. He's
Uh-huh.
not too old. He might be my age or younger, around 25 maybe. I don't know. But he's really good, and
Awesome.
he does a
That's
lot of
cool.
cool music videos. Not a lot of people aren't doing a lot of cool music videos
Right.
anymore, but he does more of like
Mhm.
a theatrical
Mhm.
element to it, kind of like Michael Jackson did with his music videos. They're
Hmm.
more of like a movie than a
That's awesome. Yeah.
just a sing along.
That's one thing I miss, like compared to this digital world. I remember I miss buying the CD and like taking the paper out and like reading
Hmm.
about the band and reading the lyrics and and all that,
Hmm.
and the artwork of the CD cover and all that too. But
Yeah. I
Yeah,
do
now you
miss
just hit
that.
play.
Yeah.
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 Well, I have a buddy of mine that he has moved. I don't think he's in Nashville, but he's close to Nashville.
Hmm.
But he's somebody from around here that moved down there to pursue the dream. So if you'd be interested in talking to him and see what his journey's like.
Yeah.
I know he's recorded. I know he's done some. He's written a few songs and he's done some studio time and stuff. And I think he, if I remember right, he actually got a job at Gibson Guitars down there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
but yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap everything up. And you have an open invitation here anytime you want to
Okay.
come on, shoot the breeze, or
Yeah, give
Yeah.
us updates where you are on your journey, and
Yeah, I
Promote-
sure can.
promote
Yeah.
any of your festivals or any
Mhm.
kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, I might hop in one day and co-host with you.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
sounds fun too.
And if you've come up with any more sauces, you need a taste tester. I have a pretty strong stomach.
Okay, I'll
As
see
long-
what I can do.
as long as it don't burn too bad on the other end.
Well, it won't get much hotter than Squatch Daddy. I mean, they've got a new pepper out that's a little bit hotter, but I don't think I can do much hotter than that.
Yeah, I tell Tammy, I say, put the toilet paper in the freezer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Hold my hand, and I'm like, "You're on your own. You're on your own."
If it don't make a tear come down the eye, it ain't hot enough.
I'm like, "Why do you torture yourself like this?" And he's like, "But it tastes so good. Go on in."
To prove I'm a man.
I had a kid that tried the Squatch Daddy, and I was at a festival. I had my booth out there giving out samples, and he tried it, and he started pouring out of the eyes, out of his nose, and all of a sudden his nose started bleeding. And after
Oh
that,
my
I was like,
gosh.
"Oh gosh, he's gonna sue me."
That's where you put your hand on his forehead and say, "Come out in the name of Jesus."
Oh, we would have had some eyes on us then.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
goodness.
brother, we're gonna hop off here. And, yeah, you let us know anytime, and we will clear our schedules.
All right, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
It's good talking with you, Lawrence.
You
And,
too.
everybody watching, we will leave a link to the Conn's Country podcast in the description. Go check it out. Give him a like, a follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff.
That'd be great. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Alrighty, man. We will catch you later.
See you later. Bye bye.